Hey, we're talking Komets hockey with Blake Sebring of the News Sentinel as we go inside the zone for the first time here in 2014. It's about the midway point, so a good time to kind of talk and reflect on the first half of the season.
There's been so much stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
We're still not halfway.
We could spend hours talking about the first half of just the trades alone could take us forever to talk about. But 34 games into the season, Komets hanging on to the 8th spot as far as the conference goes. But let's start out with what happened this weekend, because the Komets are starting to play a little bit better hockey as the roster evolves into something that Gary Graham likes even more and more and can work with even more and more. Give me your take on the 4 games this past week.
Well, Christian Ouellette and Matt Carter make a big difference. Coming in from Elmira, they did exactly what Gary hoped they would do. They crashed the net. They did a great job in the neutral zone. Ouellette just really gave them some offense. Carter's dealing with a little bit of an injury that's still healing, but he was impressive. They added some size to the lineup, and it showed. They played big. That was kind of nice to see. Ben Meisner had 4 games where he got to play, and he played very well and just really provided some stability from the goaltender position that they've been lacking this year.
And you mentioned the 2 new guys, Vascovo on the way out, Pakalak also on the way out in that trade. One of many trades, I believe it's 8 or 9 trades already
Something
this
like
season.
That, yeah.
So I kind of want to get into exactly what's been happening, because I think maybe in years past, players have requested a trade. We just haven't heard about it necessarily, or it hasn't been, I guess, that transparent. Is that how you feel, or is it just... Or is it a change?
I think it's part of this league. It's part of this league. I mean, guys are moving all the time in this league. That's all there is to it. They all have agents now who try to pressure trades and moves and things like that to go somewhere where they think they can have a better shot at a number 1 line maybe and move up and get more power play time, that kind of thing, so they can produce numbers that'll get them called up. I think that's a normal part of being a developmental league.
Do you feel like we didn't have that last year, though, as part of the ECHL?
Well, you did, though.
Part of the Komets,
But you did, because you had guys from Norfolk moving back and forth all over the place. And some of them didn't like playing for Al. It's just part of the deal. These guys are primarily, for the most part, playing for themselves. They're not playing for the team. They're playing for themselves to get the chance to move up.
In your eyes, though, is that a big difference between the leagues that the Komets have played in the previous decade and then this ECHL league?
Huge difference. I mean, guys who came here before, Fort Wayne was a big deal. In the ECHL, Fort Wayne is not a big deal. It's not a built-in advantage where players, they want to come, get taken care of by Joe Franke, for one thing. He's been around forever. He's been to the show. Steve Wisman been to the show. Guys appreciate that kind of thing. That's not a factor with these guys at all. They just want to be there, give me my time, put me on the number 1 line and let me score, and then I'll be out of here. That's how they look at it.
I mentioned the Vascovo deal, which took place last week, but one of the big deals, probably the biggest deal, I think, of this season has been December 29th when Mickey Lang, leading the ECHL in scoring at the time, they sent him to Orlando. In return, they didn't get exactly what they were hoping. David Rutherford did not report. That's kind of an odd deal. Tell us a little bit about that situation, because people are still sitting there saying, hey, we traded away the leading scorer in this league. Where's the guy? What do we get?
What was weird is I talked to David the day of the trade, and he's like, oh, man, this is going to mess things up. And he told me then he didn't think he was coming. And I'm like, well, think on it a day, and then when you're sure, let me know. So then he called me back, and he was sure. He goes, yeah, I already had this move to go to Arizona in the works. I mean, that was already pretty much a done deal. I just hadn't told anybody. And he signed there the next day. So it had to have been in the works. It wasn't just like, oh, I don't want to go to Fort Wayne, let me call Arizona. It doesn't work that quickly. And but the Komets had a personal situation off the ice in the management where they were distracted by something and they didn't put the clause in, and it came back to bite them. Now I have an idea of who might be coming in from Orlando. I can't confirm it, so I'm not going to say specifically. But if they get the person that I think they're going to try to get, Komets fans will be very, very pleased.
So maybe worth the wait in terms of the long term.
Worth the wait, yes.
But it still seems weird that we're sitting here weeks out and saying, you know what, that guy had 17 goals when we sent him, and we really haven't gotten anything. And also, you were talking about maybe a player from Utah still as part of the deals. The Komets have made a couple deals with Utah already this season.
Yeah, this is the Cody Reichert deal. They traded Phil Mangan for Ben Meisner, and that's worked out well for both teams because Mangan's played well for them. And Gary Graham liked Phil Mangan. He didn't want to trade him, but he kind of had to there. He had no choice.
You got to give us some quality to get something.
Yeah. Although Phil hadn't done much either. That was what was weird. Yeah.
Well, he had some positives perhaps in the future. You mentioned Gary because I think whenever you get a new coach taking over for a guy like Al Sims, and a guy who has as much control, I think, as Gary, and had so much control over the roster in the offseason, people want to point fingers.
Sure.
I love working with Gary, but to play the devil's advocate, how much is he to blame, I guess, for kind of the craziness that's happened so far this season?
Probably a lot of it. But there's a lot of people to take the blame. I mean, but again, the coach is the one who's always the focal point. And I think he would admit now he's a much different coach than he was 2 months ago. He's admitted to the guys that, he doesn't know everything and he's got his faults and he's trying to learn as they are. And the guys have kind of rallied around that. It's been interesting to watch. The locker room is a lot tighter now. It's a lot more together. You can see it by the way the guys are all playing defense. I think they are working as hard as they possibly can on team defense. It's amazing how the forwards are always coming back to back check and pick up the trailer, and they weren't even coming close to doing that before. They were only concerned about their numbers again and getting up ice and getting points.
Obviously, Gary had a lot of success in the SPHL down in Pensacola, winning a championship his first year as a head coach. Was a young guy coming in, although he had served under Al, which no better place to apprentice, especially in Fort Wayne, than under Al Sims. But do you feel like, you kind of mentioned it, that he had some, as a young coach in this situation in the ECHL for the first time, some growing pains, but he's really made a lot of progress in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody's going to have growing pains there. The nice thing about him is that he did have some experience with a team, and they won a championship, so he had that to build off of. That's one reason, and I'm not talking out of school here. Colin and I used to talk all the time about I felt like he needed to go away first, get other coaching jobs, and try his things that he thinks would work, see if they work, make your mistakes, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes as a rookie coach, and then come back when you've got that foundation. You can't just come in as a rookie coach and coach guys you played with. It just doesn't work. And I think he's doing that now. And I think Colin's going to be a great coach someday.
And going back to Gary, though, the offseason, I mean, he came in guns blazing.
Yes.
He scouted like nobody ever before.
I think what he tried to do, too, is I think he tried to maybe build a little bit of an all-star team of all the guys who were no longer prospects. And I'm not sure that that's the best type of team for him to coach. I think the best type of team for him to coach is kind of what he's got now, is go get a bunch of role players and help them get better and teach them and get guys who will do what you want them to do. And that's what's happening now, and that's why they're playing such great team defense.